here we are again. Welcome back. So for the sake of time, my students have just been at the stations. I'm going to go ahead and go over the exit slip. I'm going to pretend they finished with those stations and they went through all the rotations. I'm going to go ahead and ring the chimes, gather them back together, go over the exit slip, and then we can talk about the SCTS 4.0 Blue Book stuff. So, I ring the chimes, ding, ding, ding. The students should all face me, put their hands on their head, eyes on me. Chromebooks should be down so they're not distracted by anything. Alright, class, thank you for listening so quickly and paying attention. I really love that. Right now we're going to clean up from our stations and come down to the carpet because it's almost time for reading. So when I say the word of the day and the transition music goes on, I want you to start cleaning up, come down to the carpet, and I'm going to talk to you about our exit slip. When I say the word of the day, please do as I said. Remember, when the music's off, make sure your voices are off and you're on the carpet. Igneous. During a real lesson, I would use a longer transition than just a couple seconds so they would have time to actually clean up, but for this I think it's okay. Alright, class, thank you for coming down to the carpet so quietly and nicely. I really love how you're sitting. Table 3 has been doing a great job, and their table looks fantastic, so I'm going to go ahead and give them a table clip. Great job, Table 3. Okay, so I have your exit ticket up here. We're going to do the first one together, and I'm going to do it down on this piece of paper with my pencil so you can see. First, of course, you're going to write your name, so I'm going to write my name, Miss Nielsen. And then for all three of these, we're going to add up we're going to find the perimeter and the area. So I'm going to do my perimeter first. When I do it, I'm going to go ahead and write my numbers in so I know exactly how many there are. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So my area is 9 because I have 9 unit squares. And if you guys are confused when you're doing this, please use the pattern blocks, okay? Because they help you a lot. So my area is 9. And again, when I'm doing my perimeter, I'm going to mark all the sides so I make sure to get them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. My perimeter is 12. So you guys can see that. When I say the word of the day, I'm going to have you guys go back to your desk. You're going to do this really quick. You're going to write your name on it, turn it in, and then when you're done, come back to the carpet for reading. I want you guys to work on this the best you can. Do it as quick as you can, but don't rush. And then come down to the carpet. My paper passer, would you please hand these out? When I say the word of the day, please go back to your desks. Igneous. So my paper passer would hand these out, and when they're done, they'll just put these in the ton papers in here bin, and then come back down to the carpet for reading workshop. So that would conclude my lesson. During the station time, my math club kids would come in, so I would make sure to teach them the lesson, and I would just take them to the background table with some pattern blocks and just do it with them back there so I can work individually with that small group. For our stations, our students are kind of grouped by ability. So I have a couple groups of pretty high level students. My math club kids are all in one group, so they're together. And they're my lowest level group, so I'd have to spend a lot more time with them just making sure they know how to do the independent practice. And they know what's going on for the stations and all of that, especially since they missed the main lesson and they weren't with the other students. My higher level students, I would definitely be checking on them, making sure they're staying on task, doing what they need to be doing, and then I would throw those kind of higher level questions at them, get them thinking in different ways. just to kind of up their level so that they can handle. Some of my middle groups of students, they can do the problems and the stations fine, they just might have a bit trouble focusing. So that's when I would go over, stand by their table, ask them some questions, give them a thumbs up, be like, hey, you guys still good? Do you need any questions? And of course, if they need questions, I will give them that feedback and help out. Otherwise, I would move on to, just keep circulating the room. But my math club kids, I would have to teach them the lesson and then work with them. Also, I know I said earlier, when it's time for them to do independent practice and I'm done with my mini lessons, if any of those students have a question, I would stay down and talk with them, make sure they're all good, and we should be done with that before the math club kids get in. So I definitely want to make sure all my students doing their independent work are on top of it and know what they're doing. And then for the stations, they should be pretty good. I'll probably run the stations for about 11 minutes each, so we can get done maybe like 3 to 4 stations before it's time for our exit slip and our closure. So going over the SCTS 4.0 rubric, the first thing I have in the advanced indicators is like questioning. So this is the first lesson on area, so a lot of my questions would be kind of low level, like what is perimeter, going back to the previous knowledge. What does 1 orange square represent? How do you find the perimeter? What is the perimeter of the shape? Just low level, like straight answer questions. But then I could ask them a bit higher order level questions from application analysis, like how do you figure out the perimeter? Or what else could you use instead of pattern blocks for a unit square? So I know we talked about Cheez-Its. I also have Legos that I'll be talking about in the next lesson. Maybe you could use blocks, so just different pieces of paper cut up square, just different square objects. Why is area important to understand? Like, why do you need to know about area? And this, I would hope they kind of reach out and see some more real-life connections. Area is useful for finding how big different things are, and that's kind of what I'd want them to shoot for. And then to even go on that, like, what exactly could you measure to find area? I have this question. What could you use to measure the area of your house? Or what are some things in your house that you can use your knowledge of area to measure and know the size of? And then for creation and evaluation questions, I had some like, how can the area and the perimeter be different depending on the shape? Because we know if we have four unit squares, the perimeter can be different for almost any shape that they're in. So just kind of getting the students to think about why and how that is. And that'll help them, because that'll be a future lesson, so kind of front load them, give them time to think about that. Another thing I could ask them is, can you create your own shape? Just make a shape, and I want you to find the area and perimeter. And then they can do that and actually use what they know and create their own thing. So we'll be interacting a lot with the materials in this lesson. It's a very hands-on lesson, especially during the mini lesson. And during the independent practice and stations, I want them to use the pattern blocks so they can dive in and get that hands-on learning. And a lot of my questions will be kind of more lower level questions, directing them towards that, like the I can statement. You know, they can measure area by building the arrays and counting the unit squares. So I want them to be able to feel confident in that. I want to make sure I'm floating around the classroom to every group of students, and again, asking those simple questions like, what do you think, what do you know, what do you need to figure out, or what's the first step? Especially if they're struggling, because I don't want to give them the right answer, so I can ask those questions to kind of prompt them, like, at this exact moment, what do you know? And what do you need to figure out? And then hopefully, just by talking it through with them, they'll be like, oh, I got that. And most times when I talk it through with them, they're like, I got it right. They get it right away. So that's really awesome. And then again, I'll be asking lower level questions. They'll be doing a lot of like multiplying, drawing, counting, adding to find the area in the perimeter, so I can ask them questions along with those simple basic math skills. There will be some times, and I did this when like if I use the sticks with the students' names on them just to kind of mix it up, so I'm not always asking the same student, because I know I do that sometimes. Oh, so sorry. And I'll just ask the same couple of students, and then the other students definitely don't like that. And I think it'd be fun during this lesson, instead of giving them candy, giving them Cheez-Its if they get the question right, just to make it a little different and more memorable. But so then I'll have some questions, like we had one and it was like the area of, I think we had the area of 4. So I can be like, what is the area? I want everyone to call out. And then everyone knows the answer and they can call out and be like, it's 4. For other questions that are a bit more complicated, and this lesson didn't have a ton of them, especially in the mini lesson, but I can have the students think about it. When they have the right answer, put a finger on their nose. When everyone's finger's on their nose, I know I can call on, all the students and they should be able to have the answer. Or I can have them write the answer on the whiteboards, flip it over, and then when everyone has the whiteboard flipped over, I know everyone has an answer, so then we can unflip and they can show me the answer all at once. So that's some ways to give them some think time and be able to just have more time to think about the question. I would like to ask a lot of open-ended questions, and again, in this lesson it was a little bit hard because we're just trying to teach the basics of area. But I also want my class to build and answer off each other's questions. So, if Tana says something really great, another student could be like, I agree with Tana that the area must be 4 because there are 4 unit squares. Or a student can be like, wait, I'm not sure he's on the right track because I see 5 unit squares, so how do you get an area of 4? And just kind of build off of one another. And so then eventually they'll be doing all the talking and I can just kind of felicitate and guide when they have questions or confused. Moving on to academic feedback. In this lesson, I'm going to get a lot of feedback from you, from the students, and they're going to be doing lots of different activities and interacting with the materials a lot. They're going to be using a lot of pattern blocks, and when we're doing the mini lesson, I'll be able to see right away who's struggling, who's not struggling, who's able to get those pattern blocks, put them in cool designs, whip them out, find that perimeter really fast, and then who's just taking more time, is counting off the area one by one, is counting off the perimeter very slowly, just seems more confused. And then I can kind of make a mental note, like, Giovanna's having a hard time with that, so then when independent practice comes along, I can know, okay, I gotta go talk to Javon, just make sure he's up to speed, knows what's going on. And if he's a bit slow, that's fine, but if he needs some additional help, I'll be there for him. And again, just during the independent practice, when they're doing the My Math, I can give them feedback on that. And then, of course, they're going to turn those in. They're going to turn in the exit slip, independent practice, and those stations. The exit slip and the independent practice I'll get at the end of this lesson, whereas the station might take them longer because not everyone will get to that station rotation. And even if they do, they might not get to finish the whole thing. So especially for the independent practice and the exit slip, I'll probably take those home, grade each one, make sure I have an answer key, and then I can, put some comments on their independent practice. Like, I love how you labeled the unit square when you wrote your answer, so they didn't just say the area is 4, they said the area is 4 unit squares, and just giving them that affirmation, like, wow, that's a great thing. And then, of course, the exit slip and the I can statement come straight from the exit slip, and the independent practice comes straight from the I can statement. So if they're struggling with that, I can either pull a small group or reteach it the next day. Again, I'm going to be circulating around the room, making sure I'm talking with each student. I'll use the exit slip. The exit slip is a really big piece of assessment, and I can use that to plan out my next day's lesson to see if we need to reteach anything. If I need to reteach it, I could do it during a morning energizer. I can meet with students during wind time. I can talk with them at the station the next day. So there's lots of opportunities for that. The students will be working as a whole group during the mini lesson, independently during the independent practice and exit tickets, and then they'll be working in their groups during their stations. So I want them to make sure they're talking to each other when they're at their stations, using that math talk. Like especially when they have to figure out how to write their name, and I would have them up as a model just so they can see some of the letters, how I wrote them out. But that's kind of something that takes a little bit higher level thinking that they'd have to think about. How do I write my name in boxes? So I want them to talk back and forth on that. And I know some of them will make mistakes, so that's why I said I have tons of extra graph paper that the students can use if they do make a mistake. And then, if they're using a pencil, I can also be like, can you just erase it? Can you write over it? Can you do something small to fix that mistake so then you can move on? Or what can you learn from that mistake? Because mistakes are great. As for thinking, I have like analytical thinking. A lot of the problems we started out using the pattern blocks, making it with the pattern blocks, and then like for this station, they had to multiply it. They had to draw it with the pattern blocks. They had to display it with the pattern blocks. Then they had to write it on this paper in whatever shape they wanted, and then come up with the area and perimeter. So they kind of had to take it from the very concrete pattern blocks to putting it on the paper, which is a bit more abstract. And of course we kind of went from the basic hands-on to the more challenging, like here they have to count and it's all on paper. And then of course these two are kind of creative thinking. This is definitely creative thinking because they have to figure out how to write their name, and they can use fun colors and decorate it however they want, and this is something I would definitely put on the wall. And then also this, just coming up with rectangles or squares or the cool patterns is a great way for them to creatively think. There's lots of different activities in this lesson for the students to show their knowledge, and on like iWriting and Reflex, I would give them lessons. I would assign them lessons that have to do with solving basic area or maybe reviewing more about perimeter or just measurement in general. But they're using manipulatives, they're drawing, they're marking and highlighting, they're answering questions, they're performing basic math.